Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper, back with another unboxing, and this one is truly historic. Historic in terms of what this scout accomplished in his life. It literally changed the history of aviation, not only in America, but you might could even go beyond that and say the world. Just an amazing, amazing story. I was dealing mostly with the granddaughter and then got on the phone with the son-in-law of this man and got lots of great stories. Took like 2 or 3 pages of notes. I literally have been burning up ChatGPT and Google finding out information about this guy, and I can't wait to tell you all about it and show you his scouting memorabilia. This man was an Eagle Scout, and I can't wait to see his merit badge sash and show you where his early beginnings were. It's just such a cool collection. I've got the box open, so I feel like this is sort of a two-step process here. I need to open up the collection and kind of admire the Boy Scout memorabilia, but then also what I want to try to do is connect the story and help tell the story of the guy who this memorabilia belonged to, because like I said, he is a really unique individual. So let me just pull these items out. The family packages this up really nicely, and so I might have to get my pocket knife out to get into some of the packaging here. Right. So again, I want to start off by sort of showing you the scouting memorabilia, and then if you're really curious to stick around for a minute, I'll tell you more about this guy. So this is literally a 100-year-old collection. I believe that he got his Eagle in 1924. This gentleman was born in 1911. He grew up in Logansport, Indiana. Got to check my notes and make sure I don't get this wrong. And kind of a cool story. He actually played football for Purdue University in the 1930s. So we can see here with the scouting memorabilia, we have this large full square neckerchief, and it's got his troop number hand embroidered on there, Troop 5. So this was their troop neckerchief that someone, likely someone's mom, made by merging those neckerchiefs together. Then we have this guy right here. Let me carefully cut into this wrapping. So let me tell you a bit about the guy. His name, and I normally don't tell people's names in these unboxings because I'm just protecting the privacy of the family. But in this case, I feel like, having talked to the granddaughter and talked to the son-in-law, um, the family would not mind me sharing. And plus, I really want to, be able to tell you about the guy. And if you're so interested, you might want to look him up as well. And so, his name is Paul Clyde Emmons, and I hope I'm pronouncing Emmons correctly. Um, he was an engineer at Purdue, engineering major. Eventually, became a professor at Purdue, and goes off and gets hired as an aerodynamics engineer. I believe that later he's going to be called an aerodynamicist. It's not even a word I knew existed. And he helps with a really cool invention that you can go and Google. He worked for this company. This gentleman invented Waldo Waterman's flying automobile. So if you go back in the late 1930s, there's all this fascination with it. And this guy invented what would essentially be uh, a working car that you could attach wings to and a propeller to, and it actually could take off. Now, needless to say, this was not a commercial success, and it did not bring in the age of George Jetson and all of us having flying cars. Still waiting on that. But he worked for that company. Then he got to work for Bell Aircraft, and this is where he's really going to make his name. So when I spoke to the granddaughter, and the son-in-law, which was her dad, obviously. They told me that he helped work on the X1 and the X2 project. Of course, the X1, many of you would know, was the one that famously Chuck Yeager used. That aircraft that was designed to break the sound barrier, the first pilot to break the sound barrier. And if you literally go and Google, like I have, that project, you're going to find the name Paul Emmens, who is the aerodynamicist on the Bell X1. And then in fact, the son-in-law told me that Chuck Yeager and Paul were good friends, and so I'm sure they spent a lot of time together during that process there to develop that. And then moving into the X2, which was an attempt not only to improve on that, but also to achieve really, really high elevation. I believe I read in some notes that in the early 1950s that they broke Mach 2 in the X2, and then they broke Mach 3 for the first time. Unfortunately, eventually the plane lost control and the pilot was killed, and that kind of ended that program. But that plane was able to fly super high up. Like one thing I read said 65,000 feet, above 65,000 feet, and it peaked at Mach 3.2. And so Paul Emmons was the guy in charge of the aerodynamics of that vehicle to make it to be able to achieve those amazing speeds. So whoa, just really, really cool stuff. Worked for Bell Labs during World War II, was doing all this interesting stuff. And then later, another project that he worked on was developing what you and I would call a hovercraft. So if you go and research that later on in the 1950s for the Navy, he's the guy kind of in charge of engineering the hovercraft. You've seen this before. Like when I was a kid, literally in the 80s, we had a G.I. Joe toy that was a hovercraft, right? So the real legit hovercraft that was developed in the 1950s, Paul was Emmons was kind of the engineer in charge of that. Again, Google all this, double check me, and correct me in the comments if I'm not getting this right. But this is where you have these turbofans on this big floating boat, and the turbofans create this layer of air that allows the vehicle to skim across the water. In fact, his son-in-law called them hydro skimmers, which might have been the word that many of us would call. I would call it a hovercraft. And he said that same technology eventually gets put into the Osprey, that sort of rotor thing. And now I don't think that Paul continued to work that long. In fact, he passed away in 1994. So he's passed away now for 30 years. It's been a long, long time. So the family held on to this stuff for a long, long time. Obviously, I've run into this situation before. Families that have family members who have done important things. They feel very special and proud about that. And so, through multiple conversations with them, through emails, and then on the phone as well, we were able to talk about it. I told them I would love to take this collection and put it into a display in my new building, which I'm going to be moving in January, whenever you're watching this video, January 2026. And I'd like to have a display in my new building of his memorabilia. So let me kind of show you the memorabilia, which is not. If you see my unboxing, sometimes there's boxes and boxes of giant stuff. It's not that big this time, but some really, really cool stuff. Again, from the early years of the Boy Scouts of America. I almost never get collections from the 19 teens or 1920s because they're just that old. If you think about, someone would have to have kept this in a closet for 100 years. I mean, that just doesn't happen, right? So, anyways, let me show you the books first. And I confess I'm really not that familiar with this book, for example, but this one here is titled Tom Brown's School Days, which I don't believe has necessarily much to do with Boy Scouts, but it was given to him as a gift from an assistant scoutmaster in 1924. And so this was a book that was given to him, and the copyright date on it, if I can find it, I'm not sure it can. No, can't find a copyright date, but it's signed 1924, so that's pretty old. Then this is a classic that we know, we're pretty familiar with these. These are what we call Scout fiction books. And so this one, Boy Scout Camera Club, The Confessions of a Photograph. And this one has his name inscribed in the front. And if we open up a little bit more, this copyright's 1913. And these are sort of like boy action adventure books that were written during that time period. It's a genre which was ripe for that time period before radio, before TV. Books would have been a way for young men to kind of have an adventurous, thing. And so that was a common genre. Sometimes these scouts, they went flying, or they went and in some cases caught bank robbers and did all kinds of wild stuff. And some of these were not really approved by the Boy Scouts of America, although later some were. This one, The Boys Book of Campfires, Songs, Games, Stunts, and Stories, Frank Shelley. And so this one, you can see, it literally looks like a Boy Scout here on the cover. And if we open this one up, this one is from, let's see if I can find the date on this guy. 1925, yeah. And so, again, it doesn't specifically say Boy Scouts, but that's obviously who the audience is targeted towards. And there's illustrations in here and different stuff. So, some books that he had. And a couple of other things that are really cool. And I think this is kind of what will go. What I'm going to do with my display is I'm going to try to get do sort of a write up of the history of his time working as a aerospace engineer, and then also get some pictures of like the X1 and the X2 and some of the other projects he worked on, and put them in here because I love the idea that at its heart, the merit badge program of the Boy Scouts of America is really meant to expose young men and now, of course, young ladies to different vocations. The idea of a merit badge is that you're going to meet with someone who's an expert. You're going to learn something about that topic, and you're going to get to kind of dip your toes in it. And a lot of times in today, the merit badge requirements actually provoke you to think what are three different jobs that people have in this field, and to kind of explore that a little bit to maybe give you some ideas. So it's interesting to me to look at someone who obviously was a really bright person growing up 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago in Indiana, and what was he exposed to? And so I think the way to read this sash would be to kind of hold it here and say that a couple things about this sash that stand out to me. One is that I honestly, in all my years, I have never seen a sash that is made up like this. And the reason why I think that's true is because my recollection of how this story goes, and someone can help me and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments of the video, I invite you to do that, is that up until 1924, there was not a Boy Scout sash, so to speak. I think I'm getting this right, and if I'm wrong, y'all can correct me. But James E. West, who was the Chief Scout Executive, at the 1920 World Scout Jamboree, when the Boy Scouts of America were there participating with scouts from around the world, he felt like our uniforms were not up to snuff compared to maybe how decorated some of the other scouts looked. And so going to the 1924 World Scout Jamboree, he wanted to create a merit badge sash that the scouts could wear, which would show all of their achievements. And this is where we finally get, for the first time, a Eagle Scout patch, because that had not existed prior to that. You only had the medal. And so there's examples of these 1924 sashes that you can find. Oh, no, you can't really find them. They're pretty impossible to find, but they exist. They exist. And so prior to that, scouts wore their merit badges on the sleeve of their uniform, okay? And so for this example here, is really unusual. And this is one of those things that, I think deserves to kind of be in a display to itself, because it is kind of a part of that turnover of that time period where the uniforms are changing and what we think of as a merit badge sash. So if you look right here, I mean, this is kind of, in the order I would assume, this is how you would do it, is that you would arrange these in the order that you earned them. And so if indeed his first merit badge was chemistry, oh my goodness, like we know we got an engineer here if literally the first merit badge is engineering. And then the second one is astronomy. That's what that star is right there. Is a and if I get this wrong, I'm gonna be so embarrassed. I don't think that's what I think that's astronomy. I'm almost sure of that. And then this one here is with that wrench. I think that is gosh, I want to say that's craftsmanship or plumbing. I could be wrong, guys. And then botany, conservation, and then finally, here's kind of the camp badges that almost every scout got: camping and first aid, physical development, and then here is his star rank. So, if you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 merit badges, and then he has his star rank patch. And then we keep going, and there's pioneering and safety and swimming, and then we have his life rank patch. And then this is mechanical one. I think this is craftsmanship, automobiling. I believe that is personal fitness. And then this one I think is home repairs, or what we would call home repairs, athletics. This is firemanship, and then that's carpentry, and then life saving. and public health, masonry, bird study, pathfinding, hiking, I think that's civics, cooking, and painting. And so that's all his merit badges on a very, very unique single row sash. And then he's got some medals here. Let me show these to you guys. So I mentioned he grew up in Indiana. And so this is kind of cool. This is, on that surface, this is a generic BSA medal, like a contest medal is how we would describe this. And on the back, you could inscribe the person's name and what they won it for. And so this one has Best Camper 1924 Camp Dromp. I think that's Dromp. It could be, I should have researched that, guys. Sorry. I believe it's DROMPP, although that D could certainly be an O. Anyways, 1924, Paul Emmens. And then he's got another one in here as well that I'll pull out. But I love that all of these are tagged with his name. So it just, again, adds that level of authenticity and verification. This one says Camp Linus Camper, 1925. This, honestly, this could have been during a time period where very few camps issued patches. All these unboxings you've seen, we talk about camp patches, right? But when you go back into like 1924, 1925, it doesn't surprise me that a camp didn't issue a felt or embroidered patch, that maybe you would have gotten a little medal. This would have been something more common. And then here's one, 1926. This one is Camp Callahan, and this is 1926 honorary camper. Again, I'm gonna have to Google. Now, this is what I haven't done because this is the first time that I've gotten into the collection. I haven't Googled these camps to kind of find out where they are, but I'm assuming all of these would have been right there in Indiana. And then here's one more, and this one again has his name on it, and this one says, yeah, that might be an O. It might be Camp Urump, 1924, and it's got his name on the back. In the front is just the camp name. So again, just some cool medals. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. And then we have his Eagle medal, which I think I can get this repaired, although it'll be a little bit of a, oh yeah, this won't be bad at all. I can definitely get this repaired. I thought maybe the ring was missing, but it's not. So what you have here is these have just separated at some point. I'm not sure why, but the pendant and the ribbon have been separated. But this is his Eagle Scout medal, and so but luckily the ring is still there. I'm gonna take this to a jeweler and just get him to put that back on. The ring is still there, and so this is a really early medal. To my knowledge, I need to research this because there's all these minute little differences between the makers. And I'm sure that with my glasses, I will not be able to read this, guys. Obviously, it's sterling silver, but on the maker's mark is what I need to look for. But I think this would have been a very early Robbins medal. There was two other manufacturers prior to this. The first Eagle medal came out in 1912, and that was Foley. And then there was a company named Degis and Clust who produced the second sort of batch. And then I think by 1924, this would have been a Robbins is the name of the company that produces the Eagle medal, but I'll have to look at that. So, and then there's one more little bag here. I don't want to leave anything out of this unboxing, and it's just got a Boy Scout camp and logbook. And if we crack that open, this book's, oh, now this is interesting. This has got someone else's name in it. This says belongs to Lewis Balti. Interesting. And this is, oh, this is 1944. Okay, interesting. This could have been another member of the family. So that is later. Ooh, I hope this has his name. Oh, it does. Sweet. All right. So again, thinking up the display, here we go. Paul E. Emmons, February 1929. That is cool. That is super cool. I don't know if it doesn't say what rank he was. Let's see. Boy, if it did. No, it doesn't say what, it doesn't have any identifying date. It does have the stamp of the Scout Executive, which could be like E. E. Middleton. I'm not sure who the Scout Executive would have been at that time, but it's, again, to have some a name on a card to go with it. So, and he was born in 1911. So if you kind of do the math, I know he was in college. So he would have been in 1924. He would have been 13 years old. So I don't know that there's a way to research and confirm that he got his eagle in 1924, but I think that I could definitely say if you're born in 1911, you would have gotten your eagle, 19 between 1924, maybe 1926, 27. The fact is, a 1929 card. I think that's when he's a little bit older, and I've confirmed on the internet that he played football at Purdue in the 1930s. He was a good football player. He was like I think a lineman or something back in those days. So, oh, there's one more piece of paper. Boy Scouts of America, Logansport Council, Logansport, Indiana. Albert, oh, now look at that. Albert Drump, acting scout executive. And I mentioned the name of the camp was that as well. And this is just like a little, whoa, it's like a little piece of paper of some kind. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what purpose this paper was. I'll try to put a picture of it in, blow it up a little bit for you guys so you can see it. Um, Interesting. Huh. Okay. I don't know, but it's old. That's really old. All right. So again, Jason Spengler, the SanteeSwapper, thank you for sticking around. I will try to make sure that in the description of the video that I put some links or some more information about Paul and his history. And as I mentioned, when I move into my new building, I'm going to have his Eagle medal in his sash and these medals, some pictures of what he did in his time in a nice display. And so again, this is really super cool to me, not only because I grew up as a kid whose dad was in the Air Force. I grew up on an Air Force base, was always fascinated by fighter planes, and, my dad worked on airplanes. So I've always been interested in that. And to find someone who was an engineer who, if you go like in the Smithsonian, literally, you're going to find examples of his work. And in my research, actually, some of the things were cited to the Smithsonian. So super cool. This is what it's all about. He's a kid who did the scouting program and then went on to college and just did great things in this world. Really happy to see it. And so I hope I will do the family right and preserve these items and help share his story and the history. Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper. If you have a collection, maybe it's not 100 years old, maybe it's not from somebody whose name's in the Smithsonian, but I would love to talk to you and potentially make you an offer to buy the collection and then also do an unboxing video where I can share some of the history. Go to my website, scoutpatchcollectors.com. There you can find my contact information. Feel free to call me, text me, email me. I would love to talk to you. Thanks very much for watching.